Hello, welcome to this episode of something, something, something. I don't have a name for it. Why does it need a name? Why does a random internet person on the internet, not an internet person, I'm not composed of internet. Why does that person need a name for a show? This isn't network television. This is barely media. But I digress. The point is, today we're going to be talking about Pakkin's Land, which is a comic book by the one, the only Gary Shipman, created, written, and drawn by Gary Shipman. This is issue 1 of Pakkin's Land, which is a comic that Gary has been working on for nearly 30 years, I believe. So you can see that it's something he truly cares about. And there's a little Easter egg here hidden on the first page of Pakkin's Land. And right now in Indiegogo, Gary has a new comic book out that he's putting out called Titan, Mouse of Might. And if you look right here on this bookshelf, again, done so many years ago, this was drawn, you have Mouse of Might. I wonder if some of these other things will turn up. The Banana Famine, Paul's Adventure, which is what this story is. Quest for Kings, Forgotten Dreams. That almost looks like the logo for Back to the Future there, which is cool. But Mouse of Might on Indiegogo right now. Check it out. So I really like Gary's artwork. That's what we're going to be talking mostly today about, is Gary's artwork. I'm not going to be focusing too much on the story or characters. That's for you to experience. If you go in back on the Titan campaign, you can actually purchase the Pakkin's Land Omnibus, which has hundreds of pages. It's got a lot of content there, and that's in a hardbound book, which should be cool. One of the things I want to touch on with Gary's artwork is the movement of his characters. They really do look like they're actually moving. Like you can almost picture him take his next step here. And that's been something I've been wanting to see in comics. I've been looking a lot at animation stills, animation drawings. If you look at a final animation, obviously there's movement, but if you take it down to its individual frames and then back before it's painted, before all of that stuff, you look at hand-drawn animation, just when they're penciling it out, there's a lot of movement and gesture there. There's a lot of character and acting happening. And a lot of times that's missing in comic books, I think. People are too worried about drawing something with a lot of rendering or making it look cool, and they're not thinking about how those characters act and think, and what are they feeling, what are they trying to express and to emote, and is there life in their drawings? Do they bounce off the page, Again, I really like Gary's use of blacks, obviously. There's a lot of different panels in this. You can see he does a lot of times when the character is confused or trying to think about something or lost, there's going to be a lot of black in the panel. We'll look for that as we go through here. Obviously in this one, he's noticing something. It wants you to focus on him looking down, so a lot of black in there to frame him. Obviously he's in the cave here. You're going to have darkness behind him as his flashlight is pointing the other way. Here he is going through the darkness, part of him in shadow, part of him in light, as he's going to this fantastical world. And here he bursts out of that fantastical world, and you have this image here. This is, I think, probably in this first issue of Pakkin's Land, is one of my favorite images. You have the character bursting out into this fantastical world, almost like a Narnia, an alternate fantastical world that a character is entering. And here's the first image of him actually entering that world. He's gone through this cave from his world, and then you have the darkness and light contrast, and then here you have the character bursting through, lots of white around him. He's framed in, but a lot of white. And this gesture, it looks like he's actually going to land. His eyes are covered by his arm here, and you can kind of tell that he's about to burst in to see this world, this new fantastical world. And yeah, I think that's just a nice image for somebody going through this magical portal. A lot of life in that one. here you have a first appearance of an animal, and in Pakkin's land, there's a lot of animals. These animals talk, and it looks. Gary does a good job of drawing animals that have personality, characters. He's like almost like a caricature of an animal. You can see that this looks like an actual bird. Again, we see Gary's use of shadow to convey emotion. We see this bird, and here he is. It looks like a bird, like you'd recognize. Obviously, you know what a bird looks like, but it does have character as well. It's just this side of reality, or that side of reality, if this is reality. But yeah, I think there's a lot of life in these drawings. Here's another one where you can almost picture the next animation frame if this was animated. Here you have these rocks that are being lifted up off the ground. It shook the ground. And you can see it looks like the ground is shaking. Everything's coming up off the ground. You see these shadows underneath. And here you have the main character, and he looks like he's about to fall down. It actually looks like he's about to fall down under the ground. And I think that's great. I think Gary does a good job of capturing that. I like these brush lines here. His inks are really cool when you get into this close-ups here. All right. So you have here you have a sequence of this character. He's just had this encounter with this majestic eagle. He's gotten this feather. Something special has happened. And then he looks around. The eagle's left. He looks around, and at that moment, I realize, strange. I'm lost. So you have this progression of images that I think helps to convey through art the characters' emotions and what they're feeling. Again, we've seen Gary use this pose or this style of having the background completely black, the character thinking about something or realizing something, the black. Then you have a close-up. Clearly, he's wide-eyed. He's realizing something. It's not a good thing. And then here we have the first time really where the character is completely in black against a white background. Now we've seen foreground images that were black, or we've seen some shadow on the character, obviously. But here he is completely in shadow. He's lost. And that's the first time you see it. And so that makes it different. And then he turns the image, so it's this Dutch angle. It's slanted this way. You're not looking straight on. You're looking at a sideways view. It's different. It's out of the ordinary. And he uses it sparingly in order to convey to you a message of something bad has happened here. This boy who's gone into this fantastical world is lost. He pretty much had the sequence of events of finding this bird dead. That was his goal. Then he realizes he's somewhere he doesn't know where he is. There's this encounter with this eagle. Now, here he is. He's lost. What does he do? He's just a boy. Here, there's a lot of emotion on his face. Or not on his face, but showing a lot of emotion through his how he's sitting, how he's crouching down, hands on his face. Really just a good image there. But these next panels, I want to talk about something called eye flow, or how the panel flows so that it's easy to read. Here in the Western world, we read from left to right. So these panels need to have the eye go from left to right and maintain that. At least that's the idea, so that they're understandable and you can follow the story. And if you see these images, your eyes immediately drop down here through these words. Pick the words out. Your eyes still will go down to this use of contrast here, black and white, and eyes peering out of them. And that is a good start to this panel. And you go across where the eye's looking, boom, over to the boy, and he's crying, and you think, well, then where do my eyes go? If you were confused, obviously you shouldn't be, but if you are, there's help here. His gesture, the way he's sitting, points you down here to the words. And then, here we go again. We have the eyes looking, back towards it, a different closer up. And again, we have pointing down here, eyes looking out over across the panel. Now he's looking this way, down we go. And that helps you, as you're reading these comics, to know where to go. Down to these words, across next to the next page. Obviously, you turn the page then. And here we have it again. Here's an animal emerging here from the darkness. You're starting to see, oh, maybe he's not as scary as we thought. And there he is. So look at the personality that these animals have. I think Gary is just a great cartoonist in getting expression and movement, and definitely conveying character through them. This little lion here is kind of a mixture between a fox and a lion, but he's really cute, really cool character. Almost mischievous in this panel. So this is his new friend. Again, you can see here's another example of Gary using that black background as the character is wondering or thinking about something, so that you're focusing on the characters. This is another image that's one of my favorites here. You can see the little character here. He's jumping across these rocks, and it looks like he's actually up in the air. You could have had a very stiff drawing, but this is actually something Gary has taken the time to design a character that looks like he's jumping up over the rocks, and he's going to land. You can almost picture the next frame of this as he lands and continues to go. Just really, really good work. And this is I believe, one of the first things Gary worked on. You can see that he had a command of these kind of principles right off the bat. Here's another example of that personality in these animals. Characterization, even though this is recognizably and almost terrifyingly a real bear, there's enough personality there that you recognize, oh, this isn't a danger. You know, he sees it's a bear, he's afraid, and then you come down here and you see, well, obviously you wouldn't even need these words, I don't think. And this style of making the bear talk, it's almost, there's something about the way he's lettered this and drawn the word balloons that shows you that this isn't so much of a threat, at least not to you or to the main character. But then you see it, there's an expression on his face that I think helps. And then obviously you get down here and you see, oh, this character's fine with it, should be okay. Again, big but imposing. He's dwarfing him, but there's enough joy, happiness, some sort of emotion in his face to convey that message of, don't be afraid, I'm not going to hurt you. And then you have the next panel, still a big imposing shape here, but no longer afraid, willing to walk alongside. You just can see that the detail is used sparingly in these images, but there's so much information, there's so much character that you don't really need something over realized. And I think color would almost hurt this. I mean, it'd be interesting to see it colored, but it's sort of like Bone. If you ever looked at Jeff Smith's Bone, originally it was released in black and white, and then later on Scholastic teamed up with Jeff Smith to release it in color, and it's different. It changes the dynamic of the comic. It's not bad looking, but it detracts from what he's done with his line and gesture, and I think that would happen here as well. The black and white is very important to the way Gary draws, so that's a really fun picture there. Water bouncing up off of him and creating this disruption. Almost the water has movement because of these shadows. You can see it moving pretty quickly, but this bear is rock solid, catching a fish. Throw it to the boy. That's a pretty cool image of the bear there. Again, here's another example of the movement and the animated quality. One of the things about comic books versus animation is when you think about comic books, there's obviously simulated movement that you're seeing very few images in order to convey a sense of life. But in animation, you're having so many pictures that it's actually simulating movement. But if you were to break those animation stills, now take away the colors, take away the final product, and just when they initially penciled it, there's a life and a gesture to animation that is sometimes missing in comic books. There's an expression. The animator is thinking about acting. He's thinking about designing and creating a character that's coming to life. And in order to do so, they have to have subtle changes with facial expressions. They have to have broad gesture of movement, of life. And Gary captures that in his drawings a lot of the time, where you almost can picture the next frame, this fish crashing down on the boy, his reaction, his arms coming together, that type of thing. And yet, here, look at this one. Here, this trail of water crashing into him. You almost can picture what it would have been like to see the initial impact and all the way through, just like a cartoon. So, again, personality, big, expressive eyes on just a little creature. And you can see that Gary really is a master of the craft and someone you should give your time and attention to. And fortunately, he has a brand new book, Titan Mouse of Might, available on Indiegogo. And I think you guys should check it out. Definitely, at least go check it out and give it a chance. And you can see more of this great art. And let me just tell you, the art niche that I've seen for Titan, it looks fantastic. There's a lot of life and a lot of storytelling going on there that I think is going to be really cool, and I'm excited for it. So that is Pakkin's Land, issue number 1. I hope you guys had an enjoyable time. Remember to check out Gary on Indiegogo. He's also got a YouTube channel, Gary Shipman Artist Pro, that he does a lot of drawing. You'll be able to see him draw some of the pages for his comic book that he's making. And silly dog, you should be pretty excited because the images look great. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. That'd be nice. Leave a like or a comment. Tell me what you'd like to see me go over, whether you'd like me to look at some comics or something else. Just let me know. Adios.
Explosion! Fly Fox!